Let me tell you, it really is good to be back in County Durham this afternoon. I stood on this stage just over 3 weeks ago and I said that Keir Starmer's Labour Party had moved rather a long way away from Keir Hardie's Labour Party, and that we were now the party of the working man and woman. We were now the party in touch with patriotic, hard-working, decent, law-abiding people that believe in our country, that love its history. And Starmer didn't listen. No, he said in the House of Commons, he said that Nigel Farage will have the Conservative Party for breakfast. He said it at Prime Minister's Questions. But he missed the bit, which was we were going to have the Labour Party for lunch, and that's what we've done today.
When Nigel Farage brand your government a banana republic after Labour offers 63 local authorities a chance to postpone next year's elections to 2027, when over 100,000 furious Britons have already signed Reform UK petition screaming, "Let the people vote," because only dictators cancel elections, and when this comes on the heels of Labour already cancelling mayoral elections in Essex, Hampshire, the Solent, Sussex, Brighton, Norfolk, and Suffolk while sitting on 18% in the polls with Reform commanding a clear 10-point lead. You know Sir Keir Starmer has reached peak political panic mode where delaying democracy becomes preferable to facing voters who would absolutely obliterate Labour at the ballot box given half a chance. Farage's accusation that turkeys do not vote for Christmas and that Tory county councils are colluding with Labour to maintain their grip on power until 2027 is not just a witty soundbite. It is a devastating indictment of an establishment that would rather postpone accountability than face the electorate's wrath. And the fact that this is happening while Starmer simultaneously scraps Daily Downing Street press briefings and appoints a new US ambassador to replace Peter Mandelson, who got sacked over his Jeffrey Epstein connection, suggests a government in full defensive crouch trying to control the narrative whilst avoiding democratic scrutiny at every possible turn. Quick favour, if you are genuinely alarmed that Labour is postponing elections whilst languishing in the polls and Farage is calling it out as banana republic behaviour, hit that subscribe button and click that notification bell. Over 94% of you have not subscribed yet. It is free, takes literally 2 seconds, and means a world to us. Cheers if you did. Now back to the show. Right. Let us unpack this absolute constitutional shambles, because what Labour is attempting here is so audacious, so transparently self-serving, and so fundamentally undemocratic that even people who loathe Nigel Farage are having to admit he has a point. The government has confirmed that ministers have written to as many as 63 local authorities offering them the opportunity to delay next year's elections to 2027. 63. That is not a handful of special cases. That is a systematic attempt to postpone accountability across massive swathes of the country. And the timing could not be more suspicious, because Labour knows, absolutely knows, that if those elections went ahead as scheduled, they would get absolutely hammered. Look at the polling. YouGov's latest figures show Reform UK sitting pretty with a commanding lead, Labour languishing on 18%. The Greens surging to 17% and actually within touching distance of Labour, and even the Conservatives matching the Greens on 17%. Labour has gone from winning a landslide to being 4th or 5th in the polls in the space of months. That is not a blip. That is a complete collapse in public confidence. And rather than face voters and accept the consequences of their catastrophic performance, Starmer's solution is to simply not hold elections. Problem solved. Right? Wrong. Because the British public is not stupid, and they can smell fear and cowardice from a mile away. Nigel Farage's response was pitch perfect. Turkeys don't vote for Christmas. Tory county councils look set to collude with Labour to keep their control until 2027. That line about turkeys and Christmas is going to haunt Labour because it is true. Of course Labour does not want elections when they are polling at 18%. Of course, Tory-controlled county councils do not want elections when they are also facing wipeout. So they are all going to hold hands, skip the elections, and hope that by 2027 political weather has changed and voters have somehow forgotten how much they despise both establishment parties. Spoiler alert, they will not forget. And then Farage drops the killer blow. Only a banana republic bans elections. Banana republic. That is a kind of language you use for unstable authoritarian regimes, not the mother of parliaments. But here we are. Labour, the party that lectures everyone about democracy and the rule of law, is literally offering local authorities a chance to postpone elections because they are terrified of losing. The optics are catastrophic. You cannot claim to be defending democracy while simultaneously delaying elections to avoid facing voters. It does not work. It is too transparently self-serving. Now, Labour and their apologists will argue this is about local government reorganisation, that it makes sense to align elections, that it is all very sensible and administrative. Bollocks! If this was genuinely about administrative efficiency, they would not be offering it as an option to 63 authorities. They would not be doing it right now when they are polling in the toilet. And they certainly would not have already cancelled mayoral elections in Essex, Hampshire, the Solent, Sussex, Brighton, Norfolk, and Suffolk. That is a pattern. That is a strategy. And the strategy is to avoid democratic accountability for as long as humanly possible. Reform UK petition has already gathered over 100,000 signatures, and it is still climbing. The petition reads, "Last year the Tories and Labour colluded to rob millions of English people of their vote. They succeeded. Now they are at it again." That is a damning accusation, but it is backed up by facts. Elections have been cancelled. Voters have been denied their say. And now Labour wants to postpone even more elections, affecting millions more people. The petition concludes, "Only dictators cancel elections. Wherever you are in the UK, sign our petition to let the people vote." That final line is going to resonate because it taps into a fundamental democratic principle. Elections are not optional. They are not something you postpone because the polls look bad. They are the mechanism by which the people hold their government to account. Meanwhile, in other news that screamed government in crisis mode, Downing Street has announced it will scrap its daily afternoon press briefing from the new year. Now, they are framing this as modernization, as adapting to a changing media landscape, as better serving journalists and the public. But come on, Labour is getting absolutely battered in the press. Starmer can barely get through a PMQs without looking rattled. His approval ratings are in freefall. And now they are scrapping one of the main opportunities for journalists to question the government? That is not modernization. That is damage limitation. That is controlling the narrative. That is reducing the number of times per day that the government has to defend its disastrous record. Tim Allen, Downing Street's executive director of communications, said the media landscape had been utterly transformed in recent years, leaving the current arrangements not fit for purpose. Translation: we are getting destroyed in the traditional media, so we are going to reduce our exposure and focus on more controllable formats like occasional press conferences and technical briefings. The claim that this will allow greater access for content creators and journalists outside the lobby is laughable. This is about less scrutiny, not more. This is about fewer opportunities for awkward questions, not more engagement. And then there's the appointment of Christian Turner as a new U.S. ambassador, replacing Peter Mandelson, who got sacked after the extent of his links to Jeffrey Epstein were revealed. Now, Turner is by all accounts a solid diplomat with extensive experience. He is currently the UK's permanent representative to the United Nations, and he has served as political director of the Foreign Office and High Commissioner to Pakistan. No complaints about his qualifications. But the timing is interesting. Mandelson's sacking in September was a massive embarrassment for Starmer, who had appointed him despite knowing about the Epstein connections. And now they are rushing to get Turner confirmed by Washington before any more awkward questions can be asked. Turner's statement was diplomatic boilerplate. "I am honored to be nominated to serve as the UK's ambassador to the USA. Our two countries share a historic partnership rooted in common values, shared security, and deep economic ties." All true. All boring. What is more interesting is that he will be dealing with President Trump's administration, which has already made clear it has no love for Starmer's Labour government. This is going to be a challenging role, and Turner's success or failure will say a lot about whether Labour can salvage any kind of working relationship with Washington. Back on the domestic front, the Home Office has paused plans to house asylum seekers at Crowborough Army Training Camp in East Sussex following weeks of protests by residents. Conservative MP Nusrat Ghani confirmed the delay, and the Home Office is not making decisions on the site until the new year. The official line is that they are working to close all asylum hotels and find more suitable sites. The reality is that every time they try to actually implement their asylum policy, they face massive local opposition and political backlash, so they kick the can down the road and hope the problem goes away. It will not. On crime and immigration, Conservative MP Katie Lamb has called on Labour to release full nationality data relating to migrant crime. She cited shocking statistics. Foreign nationals make up a third of all convictions for sexual assaults against women despite representing only 11 to 12% of the population. Afghans and Eritreans, the nationalities with the largest number of small boat crossings, are more than 20 times more likely to be convicted for sexual offences than British nationals. These are explosive statistics, and Lamb is right to demand full transparency. The public has a right to know the full scale of the problem. Jess Phillips, the minister, responding, basically deflected by saying the vast majority of violence against women and girls is committed by British nationals against British nationals, which is true but misses the point. Yes, most crime is domestic, but if certain migrant groups are massively overrepresented in specific types of serious crime that is relevant to immigration policy and public safety, refusing to release the full data smacks of trying to hide uncomfortable truths. Kimi Badenoch, ever willing to say what others are thinking, called Labour's strategy to tackle violence against women and girls a complete distraction. She pointed out that it is not 11-year-old boys in school perpetrating these crimes. It is a specific problem with specific demographics, and Labour's refusal to address it honestly is just virtue signaling. She said they need to put police on the street, stop people from cultures that do not respect women from entering the country, and remove foreign criminals immediately. Whether you agree with her solutions or not, she is at least willing to name the problem. Labour also announced plans to ban nudification tools that generate deepfake nude images. Technology Secretary Liz Kendall positioned this as protecting women and girls online. It is a good policy. These tools are vile. They are used for harassment and abuse, and banning them is common sense. But it is also a convenient announcement for a government desperate for positive headlines. Look, we are doing something about online abuse. Please ignore the election postponements and collapsing poll numbers.